Well, thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate you guys coming today. We've got an interesting panel here today. This is a unique topic that has never, ever been talked about before at Digital Hollywood. I'm glad we're breaking new ground here. It's video, anytime, anywhere. Video across platforms. Television, broadband, and mobile. Understanding the value proposition. So we've got a terrific panel here with us today to help us understand this. I mean, I think, video anytime, anywhere. I mean, the first thing that popped in my mind was TV everywhere, just because it's the same words that are in that. And TV everywhere is becoming ubiquitous. It's getting out literally everywhere, not to use a pun. And it seems that you can pretty much, if you've got a pay TV subscription, you can pretty much watch what you want, so long as you subscribe to it in pretty much any area, so long as you can pretty much remember your password. Or else you can get it other ways too. Is it really coming together? Is it really one thing from a business model perspective? Is it one set of monetization? Those are other questions. It's not quite come together there. Online and linear and VOD are still a bit different revenue streams, although VOD and linear come together a bit. But I'm not sure if that necessarily matters. It seems like the technology's out there, the platforms are out there. We almost are, kind of at the point where it's ubiquitous. I mean, is this it? Is this what's next? Is there a next? Is it just execution and getting things done, or are we basically where we are? And then there's everything. The other thing that you think of for TV everywhere is, certainly in the last few weeks, is there seems to be also ubiquitous of separated SVOD services. So in a sense, that's a bit of video everywhere, and a bit of video everywhere, and a bit of video everywhere, and a bit of video everywhere. That's the other model that seems to be coming towards us, as well. You've got CBS, you've got HBO Go, the new Lionsgate Tribeca thing, a whole slew of other things, and then you have some stopping, like Redbox Instance and Comcast StreamPix kind of repositioning. But there are others. Just the announcements seem to outnumber the things starting, seem to outnumber the things that are stopping. So is this just going to keep going? Netflix keeps climbing, notwithstanding its stock drop. Now they're getting to be into movies. They're everywhere. What's going on there? Do we have these two competing models, or are they one model? So to help us figure this out, and everything else as well, we've got a terrific panel. Jason Henderson from Dish. Then we've got Jared Grant from Disney ABC, Emil Rensing from Epix, and Doug Rosen from NBCU. So I'd like to ask each of you to take 2 or 3 minutes to talk to you about your backgrounds, where you sit in this video anytime, anywhere ecosystem, and what's your view? Are we there? Is there more? Does cross-platform matter? Does it matter that you can have this TV everywhere? And what are some of the challenges that you see? So with that broad introduction, Jason?
You want all of that in the introduction?
2 or 3 minutes only. Okay. I'm timing it.
Okay, so my name is Jason Henderson. I'm a senior ITV apps product manager with the Dish Network. I, for a while, ran TVE over at Verizon, and now I work for the group that's in charge of video products at Dish. So that includes TVE as well as apps and just any kind of enhanced TV watching that we do. I have to say TVE, video everywhere, is extremely important to Dish. And for years, we've been trying to perfect our own TVE experience, in part by completely separating the experience from the way it happens on the set-top box. So if you get your Dish Anywhere, which is the name of the application, which ranks extremely well, you have access to everything that's on your set-top box, but the experience doesn't look like the set-top box. It's completely built around how would you build it from scratch? How do people want to access their stuff and search for their stuff and play it back? But if you are a Dish Network user, you should check out Dish Anywhere, because you can basically find anything that would be on your set-top box, but you can be at the ball game when you're doing it. So that's me.
All right, J.R. Grant. I oversee product and technology for Disney ABC Television Group, specifically in that role. Really spearheading and overseeing all of our TV Everywhere products across the 3 Disney channels: Disney Channel, Disney XD, Disney Junior, as well as ABC and ABC Family. So all the products in the market across all the platforms, technology behind it. I also oversee our sort of wholesale distribution channel, where we are shipping content that we own to folks like Netflix and Dish Network, et cetera. Sort of my perspective on, what we're going to continue to see, just continued growth in both the platforms for a while, but definitely in the consumption, right? As we look across all the age groups that I have products to Disney, ABC, we have products in the market. Every month is pretty much growth, right? Especially on the kids side, just voraciously consuming all of this great content that we produce and put on these different platforms. And that's sort of our big mantra, right? Is to get our consumers access to all the content that we produce, and do it in the simplest, easiest way possible. And so that's devices, an iOS iPhone or an Apple TV connected to your big, 70-inch TV at home. That's what we want to go and do. There's tons and tons of challenges to answer your question, and all of that in first of all, making the products and building those and operating those, and then shipping all the content there the way we want it to be there from a quality standpoint, from a monetization standpoint. Tons of challenges, but I see nothing but growth in the coming years. It's a real exciting space.
Emma?
I mean, it's definitely a demand-based moment. I'm working on it. I run digital over at Epix, and we're a relatively new cable network. We've been around. It'll be 5 years next week, I think. I don't know. I was pretty drunk when we launched. I'm pretty sure it's next week. We're a first-run pay television movie channel-like service. We have the exclusive first-run theatrical output to all the films from Paramount, Lionsgate, and MGM. Those are movies that will not show up on HBO or Showtime or Starz. They are ours. They will be on our channel. What kind of makes us interesting as we think about these growth sectors, within the audience, if it's a new audience, a shifting, I don't know, whatever the kids are doing. We actually also have the internet rights to our entire catalog. So we have about 3,200 titles under license. So in addition to distributing them to satellite folks like Dish, and cable folks like Time Warner Cable, and telcos like AT&T and Verizon, we also supply Netflix and Amazon Prime. So if you've ever seen a first-run movie, a new movie, other than something from Weinstein, on Netflix, that's come from us. So that's really what the interesting piece of our business is. We're working as aggressive as we can to build out our footprint to service customers as best we can. We do a tremendous amount of work to support our distribution partners like Dish and Verizon, as well as putting out our own apps, and really just trying to find an addressable market and put product in front of them on behalf of a retail partner.
My name is Doug Rosen. I head up partnerships and strategy for the TV Everywhere team at NBC Universal. We're actually a relatively new group, formed about, say, 6 months ago. And really, our mission is to work across the entire NBC portfolio to help sort of deliver on, I think, what's been missing to date. And I think we'd all acknowledge this, which is the kind of true value proposition for TV Everywhere across the industry, especially at our company. I think, there's clearly a mandate on our end to sort of deliver there, both from an ad sales perspective, but also, truthfully, to sort of continue to sort of reinforce the value of the pay TV bundle. But to date, there's been challenges certainly on cross-device ubiquity, on clarifying windowing, on even just the idea of authentication and what a consumer gets. And so part of what we're looking to do is really drive that forward and present, I think, a clear value proposition, both for our current audience, but also, I think, most importantly, for a younger audience, for people who are coming up, who may be, court eventually people who are in their 20s who haven't subscribed yet, to let them understand certainly that there's potentially a better way to watch this content than going other places we don't want them. So I think it's an interesting time in the industry, and we're very bullish on it. And there's sort of the question really now is, what are kind of the business models that are going to sort of live over the next few years?
All right, so let's start by talking about TV Everywhere. Let's start talking on what Doug is saying. So I think one of the things you just mentioned, which is certainly the original rationale for TV Everywhere, for this authenticated viewing, is to defend the bundle. I mean, it's really to defend the pay TV subscription. Yeah. It's also to keep the value of your brands, the programmers' brands up, and make sure that that's always front and center. And now TV Everywhere is out there. I mean, it's quite out there. How's it worked?
I guess I can start. Well, I think, just mentioned this a little bit earlier. I think it's not working as well as we'd like. I think it works for certain content. I think sports has certainly shown when consumers want content around the Olympics or around the NFL, they'll find it. They'll find a way through. I think authentication, which has been challenging to date. I think the truth is people are very comfortable with the idea of a username and password, and we've done a good job to date on making it easier for them to go through that funnel. But unless you're really hungry and want the content, I think to date, again, it's been unclear. And frankly, once you actually get through the barrier, it's sometimes unclear on why you did and what the value is. And so I would say that we recognize that, both from, I think, defending the bundle, but also from an ad sales opportunity, like there are real dollars there, assuming you have scale around the viewing, that there's value in doing it on every front. I think we just need to do a better job on the technology side, on the product side, and to some extent, take advantage of some of these new devices out there as a way to tap into an audience that we're not grabbing yet.
Okay. Anybody else on that one?
Well, there's a lot of confusion. If you talk to people about, hey, what do you have access to? What kind of content, okay, you're a Verizon subscriber, you're a Comcast subscriber. What of the content that you have do you have access to through TV Everywhere? And the answers you'll get will be myriad. Mm-hmm. And, I think we do a pretty good job. I think we go out of our way to try to do a pretty good job, but I think we still have to convince people of that no, look, whatever you've got on your DVR, you can access, whatever you've got. But it's, because these terms have become very sort of loose and elastic. But to me, when we talk about TV Everywhere, we're talking about getting access to your TV service, right, sort of wherever you are, and I'll limit that to North America.
Right, so authenticated viewing, let's say.
Authenticated viewing.
Authenticated viewing.
Although that's the other issue, is that up until the existence of TV Everywhere or the need to log in to watch ESPN or whatever, people did not tend to carry around the username and password for their TV service in their head. And so, sort of announcing that to people and bringing them to the world where that's something they need. Now he's right. Everybody understands the concept of username and password, but there's that incremental step of people actually getting it, for the first time. I remember at Verizon, we used to have a terrible time just creating, getting people to set up those applications, because generally you could actually use most of your stuff without creating, an email address and a password and all that stuff. So it's been a learning curve to get people there.
So with auto authentication, then the idea of auto login when you log in from your iPad into the TV Everywhere app when you're at home, it knows you're coming over the same connection. There's a number of MVPTs who have rolled that out. Is that going to help? What have you seen? I mean, something's been rolled out in some places. I mean, you must have some anecdotal information, and all of you have that. Does that help? I mean, and for each of you, really. Epic certainly, as well as anybody else. Have you seen the impact of auto login or what you project in terms of viewing? Is that going to cause a real qualitative jump in the amount of viewing? Is it a large amount, of multiple? What's your thoughts?
I'll jump in here in the beginning. I mean, I think with the MVP partners that we've rolled out auto and home authentication with, it's been tremendously successful in getting people through that barrier. I do think, though, that it's a bit of a double-edged sword where it becomes even potentially more confusing on what the value proposition is, because it all happens behind the scenes then to the consumer, and then it changes once you leave your house or connect to a different network, and you sort of once again introduce another disconnect. While yes, it's great we can get them through the gate early on and get them access to the content, explaining why that happened and why your user experience is then different if you go next door. That's sort of another challenge as well that we're also sort of facing. I mean, the other thing too, it takes a lot of, big companies working together to get it done, whether it's someone like Disney, ABC working with the Dish technology infrastructure, with Adobe, it usually sits in the middle with Adobe Pass. There's a lot of things plus all of the devices, and it works different in a browser than it does on a phone. There's a lot of challenges and a lot of pieces that need to come together. So while we've rolled it out, it's been successful. We're continuing to be aggressive in rolling it out with our partners. It does potentially create some other challenges.
Yeah, and I think that there's also, just to sort of reiterate a point, the high level understanding of paying my cable bill does something on this device that you might want that's actually kind of cool is just a foreign concept, and we don't explain that enough. And that's really what it is that you're saying. You look at your cable bill, and some months, you're having a rough month. And say, damn it, why do I really need this? Oh, right, it actually, I have portability, I have transportability. It's a device that I have with me. It's my preferred methodology of doing pretty much everything. Why shouldn't my television? I got a text message. Why shouldn't my television product be here too? So,
I mean, I think there's these moments that sort of crystallize or sort of catalytic moments that we see on the kids side, especially with parents, where I instantly in the moment in line at the grocery store or wherever that is, where because I logged in with, I'll use Dish since you're sitting next to me, Jason.
Sure, absolutely.
Logged in with my Dish account that my child can have entertainment wherever, the doctor's office, whatever. There's that moment where it really all clicks, right? We just got to figure out how to have more of those moments across the genres, across the brands, across the content.
If I might add, there's another value prop though that I think has become almost invisible to us because we've been doing this now for a couple of years. But the concept of being able to watch your content around the house without actually looking at a TV screen is still actually a fairly new one.
Yeah.
But kids are all about it, so I'm watching something, my older child is watching something on another TV, but somebody in the house is going to be wandering around with a tablet and also getting access to that content. So now in that kind of case, they benefit from the authentication at the Wi-Fi, so it gets easier. But that experience of just sort of portability around your house is really new. I mean, it wasn't there a few years ago.
But that also, I mean, it's kind of an odd sort of thing, but then that also in a sense reduces revenue for your operators because you, in theory, may sell fewer set-top boxes or second set-top boxes or third set-top boxes for the home. Is that a consideration at all, or nobody really cares?
Well, I mean, how many set-top boxes can you have? The set-top boxes are extremely important to the business, but we are basically about giving people the experience sort of wherever they want it. So if they want the features of a set-top box, there are certain places where that is absolutely ideal. I mean, the Hopper, for what it's worth, we call our set-top box the Hopper, and then the little ones around the house are the Joeys, right?
Plays really well in Australia.
Right, and so there's all these, there's all those features to that. But if you as a consumer, what you want is access to the content, and you want it on a tablet or whatever, we can talk to you. So it's more a matter of like aiming the right product at the right consumer.
You don't want to create an A/B test in somebody's home.
Yeah,
I mean that's.
In a sense, the tablet experience that your teenage daughter is using might be a different experience, and you are sort of running a test, except of course the thing is, I think this is what you're getting at. She's a totally different market, so the two will never talk. She's not going to compare.
I'm just saying, if I have a subset of devices that are called cable box and have cable service, and I have a subset of devices that are called OTT and I have things like Hulu and Netflix, and,
or even
I'm creating an A/B test. Yes, but even if they have Epics, they're still paying their cable bill because they can't buy direct.
Right. But then there's also the other A/B test too. I mean, I think we just talked about this small example in our little prep, where I was trying to watch that first episode of Star Wars Rebels because I'm a nerd, and and the only place I could find to watch it is my Time Warner Cable app on my iPad. But then Jared kindly pointed out, and at that I should have just downloaded the Watch Disney XD app, and I would get it a week earlier. Now that's another A/B test. We're also competing, sort of creating that sort of internal competition then between the apps.
Well, we've
in a sense, and that's always been there. But
like, especially again using the Disney channels as an example there, with and great pieces of content like Star Wars Rebels, and we've done this with a number of series and premieres. We use that as the carrot to try to drive through authentication. Right, so we talked about the title of the panel, value proposition, and around stuff like that. That is the value prop. I can get Star Wars Rebels a week in advance. We've done it with a number of other series.
Well, that moment you talked about a second
ago. I try
ago.
to use it as a teaching moment.
And that's pretty big motivation for me to call my cable company and sit on hold for 20 minutes to get my password reset.
Right.
Getting it,
Right.
and I'm getting it a week early.
Yeah,
Where's the fun?
We don't have the World Cup games that ESPN had, but we have Star Wars. So that's way better in some cases.
And then you all need apps. You all have an enormous number of apps. You all have millions, tens of millions of downloads of each of your apps. How do you drive this? How do you drive the app downloads? Because you can't, in general, if you're trying to drive the viewing experience on something like an iPad, you can't have it without the app.
To a great extent, it becomes a performance-based meritocracy. Whoever does the best job at that moment is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to do a better job with Star Wars content? Disney or miscellaneous cable company number 644? Right? I mean, you're creating killer experiences, and I mean that's what your fans want. That's what you want. That's what you want to deliver. When we launched on Dish, we basically, we're gonna synthesize and standardize and stabilize and homogenize all the video formats, and everybody's gonna send us their mezzanine files, and great. Here's all the mezzanine files. You guys go nuts. By the way, here's 20 things that we're doing on our site that you guys are more than welcome to do. Yeah, we can't. We're not doing any of that. Good luck, man. Awesome. Go have a good time. But we're not going to be able to do any of that.
Well, and
it's just a different mission. And I mean, it's not. You got to have the right tool for the right job. And but who's going to do a better job with Disney product? Who's going to do a better job with sports product?
Right.
I
mean, that's an ongoing debate. It's the programmer app and an aggregator. I think there's value in both, and I think our job on the programmer side is we know our brands better than anyone else, and we have a dedicated fan base. And so, to your point, I mean, the Epix app is always going to be a step ahead because you're going to build on a native feature set. Well, yeah, right. Unless the aggregator suddenly is able to.
Well, I'll tell you what the big challenge that we've got in our business, run by 3 dudes that run 3 movie studios. So they look at software budgets, like they look at film budgets.
Right.
Oh, you spent that money? Awesome. So that's good for 10 years, right?
Right. Well, which makes it challenging to compete, certainly on the OTT side, when you have companies like Netflix who are spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year on the technology stack, right?
Sure. And again, from our perspective, because I'm not a direct retailer, right? So I'm not going dollar for dollar with those guys. Netflix has made they've made their bet on the features that they're building. Their family-friendly approach. And that was their positioning. We're building these features. We know that this is a product. We want to get that younger audience. Here's how we think we're going to do it. Right? We've got film product over at Netflix. We've got film product over at Epix. We've got film product over at Amazon Prime. We've got film product over at Dish Online and Sling. I mean, what do you prefer? Why
there's no animosity. I mean, there's no. The good thing is, like with Dish Anywhere, we're making an effort to say, hey, yes, if something if something from Epix is on your DVR or on your set-top box or available on demand, you can have it, in amongst all the rest of your library. And that's the message is, hey, this is your library and you have access to it. That's different from the message of, hey, this is the best Epix experience brought to you by Epix, and we are happy to provide access to that, obviously, because it's still, in the end, to us, is just another value add to being a subscriber.
Right. But you ultimately do run into sort of platform-based feature issues. I mean, I'm a TiVo customer. I'm a huge TiVo fan. I love my TiVo. I have a Hulu Plus button in my Now Playing list. I don't think I've ever hit it. But I watch Hulu Plus all the time on my Apple TV. Well, my Apple TV is more responsive. It's faster. It's easier to use. The pictures are brighter. I don't know. There's fewer buttons on the remote. I don't know but for whatever reason, I've made that decision, right? I love my Sling box for those same reasons as well, right? Could it be faster, stronger, shinier? Yeah, everything could always be faster, stronger, shinier. But it's the easiest way for me to take some esoteric thing that was recorded on TCM that I really want to watch while I'm sitting on a runway because my plane is delayed.
Yeah.
That's a thing. People do that.
And so that's what's going to happen. I mean, is it that your programmers are going to, have to go, in the past, programmers haven't generally had as much necessarily of a forward brand in the consumer's mind as the shows that are on it, with certain exceptions like NBC and ABC, obviously, but and Epix. But is that going to be an imperative? And is that why we're seeing, for me, I'll just put it that way, my moment that made me wait, an hour on the phone with Time Warner Cable to try to get my password reset was the HBO Go app being released there, and I wanted to see that HBO, go up, and it, beautiful app, content for it, very different in a sense because it's, than others. It's putting content for it as opposed to Netflix doing a family-friendly environment. It's, playing to its strengths and all of that. And it's really, one could argue that it's really driven the HBO brand to, to some extent, by itself, away from just its shows itself. And, that in a sense was quintessential TV everywhere app. People use it as example all the time, the watch apps notwithstanding. And now they're going away from the bundle, supposedly.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Is, TV Everywhere, which was supposed to, protect the bundle and protect the package originally, now is going in different directions, it seems.
So some of these are going to be super popular. HBO, I think, I would predict, and we may differ, but I predict that HBO will be popular.
If they put their first run programming in,
and they
by
continue to
definition,
be great.
I mean, assuming a lot of things we don't know, but assuming it's first run HBO, if you're a presumed cord cutter, I think that will be attractive to you. CBS will be attractive to you. Netflix is attractive to you. Actually, the reason why I'm not panicked is that all of these things are going to be attractive to you. In the end, probably 10 more in 2015 are going to be attractive to you. And after a while, you're going to look around and go, gosh, wouldn't it be great if there were somebody who could aggregate all of this content and negotiate for
bundle
it?
it up.
Maybe I'd benefit from their
I
negotiations.
heard this thing called a bundle.
And they could bundle it, and and so reinvent the need for an aggregator. I think we'll get there. That's my prediction.
Well, a lot of it's going to come down certainly to price and content. I think, as you said, HBO is probably a good example of a brand that everyone would agree can stand on their own. But at the end of the day, is it $20 a month? Is it $25? Is it with your broadband package? Is it the same window that you get through your MVPD? I think the jury's still out. And even if it was truly OTT, again, is it one of 3 or 4 brands that sort of able to do that? I think that's the big question, right? So there's this rush to OTT, and you see all these announcements, and I think it's really interesting. And then, but is this an effort to sort of redo some of the contracts on the MVPD side? I think that's really the big question, right? So, what's the effect on that? And that's probably more in their mindset than anything else right now.
So do you think sort of the CBS thing is a bit about some of the retrans agreements, that's why they're putting the local on there?
I certainly don't know the answer, but if I had to guess, I think that's a big driver of it.
we all know the cable guys like to negotiate their deals in press releases. So right? It's just what the industry does.
Yeah. And many of those deals are certainly right now sort of struck in a way where the MVPD has a lot of the upside. So if you went back to the table and said, actually, we'd like to kind of recapture some of that, I think it's interesting. I think the other issue is, these companies right now are not set up to run an OTT business. The idea of billing, customer service, managing subscription churn, which is really what that business is about.
Customer satisfaction.
Right.
Call centers.
Yeah, call center.
I mean, the whole idea,
Marketing.
the whole idea. Oh my God! Of like, if you were if you're running a cable company and now you have to build call centers and train people to take all the, and build a whole apparatus for billing.
Yeah.
You're going to take credit cards now, and that's more trouble than people might anticipate.
Well, people do tend to want to call or email somebody if you're giving them money.
Yeah.
Yes.
And look, you can certainly outsource most of that, but at the end of the day, you're running a subscription business, right? And so there's volatility associated with that, which right now you don't have in your core business.
So for something like the CBS All Access, I mean, looking at what networks generate in terms of advertising revenue from their primetime shows, say on, NBC, for example. I mean, I'm not asking for numbers, but you certainly probably do generate quite a significant amount of revenue, from your, just from your online on NBC.com, just the advertising dollars. It's not insubstantial. I mean, and CBS the same, presumably. Sure. I mean, it is, and then your Hulu revenue as well. I mean, is a CBS going to be able to? Are they just looking at Hulu and saying that it's the Hulu Plus got all of these cord cutters or cord nevers, and so will I this way, or is it? I mean, can that happen? Because in a sense, Hulu is a rebundling already.
Yeah, I mean, how do I stay away from certain things? I think the question with CBS.
Somebody else can answer that instead.
What Mr. Rosen's attorney told us he had to say was.
So as we know, CBS has taken a somewhat different approach in the past on how they've thought about content syndication and licensing. And I think it's interesting. The question is really how much of it is about defending retrans and how much of it is about them actually trying to drive a sustainable OTT SVOD business. And I think the jury's still out. My guess would be it's probably both. Okay. I certainly think there are a lot of smart people over there, and they're certainly balancing additional ad revenue against what the subscription service is going to be. But I just think it's too early.
And actually, Hulu Plus is sort of an interesting example. We were talking about a rebundling approach and all of that. I mean, Hulu Plus is a bundle.
So right. And so the question is, who, I'm genuinely curious. I mean, who here subscribes to Hulu Plus, actually? Because I know it's huge. Okay, and you do as well. I'm
And actually, who of you has a pay TV subscription as well? Who subscribes to Hulu Plus?
actually, let's put it another way. Who has both pay TV and Hulu Plus? Okay, why? I'm just curious. Like, I'm not against it. I just literally want to try to figure out like what's the point in adding the Hulu Plus? Is there a
different viewing experiences, I would argue, actually. So when you want the live experience, you want the show for the first time when everybody else is watching it at the same time, you go to the television.
right?
And then there's the stuff where it's purely episodic and just really very much linked to the OTT device.
So it's literally the experience.
Yeah.
You look there and you see all these episodes of Parks and Rec, and so it's just easier to pick it that way.
Am I going to have a binge Saturday, or am I going to just have like my premiere Thursday?
And do you guys watch your Hulu Plus on an OTT, like a game device or something like that, or online? Use what?
How many of you use it on both game box? You know, yes, no,
Yes.
no.
It really depends on, as you said, it depends on what content I want to watch and, how much time I have, what device I'm in front of. Usually my iPad is always my favorite.
Your iPad.
Xbox and PlayStation, well, probably the remote. But I have a lot of devices and a lot of ways to
Sure.
I like to have that option.
Now, I have to point out, or else bad things would happen. If you were a Dish subscriber, I can take care of you with our app. But that's really interesting. So it's about that experience.
Well, I'll tell you why I
At
did.
the end of the day, the experience becomes, a defining characteristic of the brand. I mean, and you have some experiences that are hits, and you have some experiences that are not.
Yeah, and I mean the content on Hulu Plus. I mean the set of content there isn't terrifically wide. It's 5 episodes in general,
No, that's right.
so it's not like you can binge all that much really.
I mean, again, because I have Dish, I go to my Dish Anywhere, and it's recorded basically everything. If I've recorded every episode of Parks and Rec over the past season, then I'll just have all of them right there.
Right.
And with Primetime Anytime, I'm just sort of automatically recording them. But it depends on if I set it to keep. I just have access to my DVR, which is, which follows whatever rules I apply to it.
So in the last few weeks, I mean, we've had some announcements of a lot of these SVOD services starting up. CBS, HBO going off bundle, the Lionsgate thing. Show Me in Canada launching between Rogers and Shaw. But we've also had a couple of negative announcements. There's Redbox Instant essentially shutting down. There's Stream Picks. Yeah. Redbox Instant, the subscription service joint venture between Verizon and Redbox. Redbox is not shutting down. You can't keep your DVDs that you have on rental. You got to give it out.
You got to take it back.
So don't try that. Hope it doesn't work there. But RBI is shutting down, as well as Comcast Stream Picks. While not shutting down, it is, they have certainly said that they're scaling back a bit. And overseas, Waki, who is Rakuten's video play, they're the second largest e-commerce retailer after Amazon, has backed off of SVOD in the UK and France. So they're keeping doing it in Spain. So what does this mean on that side? I mean, these are sort of purer SVOD offerings, if you will, not tied to any advertising or anything like that. And they're backing off. It's just they can't compete with Netflix because its content cost is too high. And what does that mean for the other future SVOD offerings?
I think it's a little bit of a bunch of different things, but I think your point is right. I mean, it's a tough space to compete in for the consumer's dollar spend, and there's a lot of different choices. And we talked a little bit, right? We talked a little bit about features up here, and why in different settings you would choose one application versus another versus traditional set-top viewing. I mean, it's challenging to make a name for yourself. Not to mention, we talked sort of joking about setting up these pay subscription businesses and taking credit card payments and setting up call centers.
Yeah,
it's challenging, right? Not to mention the cost of all the content. So
but just the mere awareness.
Yeah.
People know about Hulu because Alec Baldwin did commercials for it. But you know, do you think that people, maybe in this room, because these are some unusual people, but I mean, generally,
In the best way possible.
right? Yeah, but generally, people, I don't think we're all that aware of the you know, the Redbox streaming service, you know, and Redbox is extraordinarily popular,
Yeah.
you know.
Actually, how many of you were aware of Redbox Instant?
Okay, so
Well,
everybody here.
how many of you understood the Comcast StreamPix subscription structure?
Do you work for Comcast?
Ken gets around.
Just me.
So yes.
Okay,
Well, I
so
think
yes.
also, I mean, one of the key things about the services you mentioned, certainly StreamPix, is, you know, these are the clear value proposition, and what differentiates them from the others isn't there, right? And so Redbox Instant, right? Certainly the addition of renting physical DVDs, but they sort of didn't do the best job of packaging those together. And in a very competitive space, you need to stand out. You either need a deep library or exclusive original programming and a reason to subscribe.
But I mean, you know, we had a deal with Redbox over at Epix, and we have a deal with Verizon over at Epix. You know, the Redbox folks are Coinstar. They're a vending machine. Turn your cans into coin. We'll take a small vig for doing some math for you. Business.
Not that small.
And well, I'm being glib. Apologies. You know, I wouldn't necessarily bet on those two companies to outmarket a Hulu. Right? That's kind of what it came down to. You know, if you were at a racetrack and you had a sports car and a pickup truck and you were placing bets, you'd bet on the sports car until somebody told you that the race involved carrying 2 tons of dirt. Right? I mean, they're different things for a similar goal. So I mean, I think that's really what the struggle was in that case.
Yeah, I mean, sort of piggyback on that point and so almost restating what I said earlier. I mean, there's so many different choices to get content. Your window opportunity for these guys and other people are going to come after them to grab a customer and establish that is very tight, right? You're going to turn off somebody because of some glitch or some billing operation. They'll leave for the next best thing, right? It's just very hard. I mean, it's almost back to the traditional sort of cable world of just, you know, reducing the churn, right, and maintaining as many customers under the tent as possible. And that's difficult for a startup.
The most expensive thing that you can do is get a new customer. It's vital to build new customers, which is why it's so hard to start a new service, is because, you know, acquiring customers is kind of the most expensive thing. Once you've got them, then you pull at all stops to keep them, because keeping them is what you want, you know, and making back that initial spend.
So I think, you know, one of the, obviously you talked about sort of killer content, and the content is, you know, on HBO side certainly is what drives people to it, of course. You know, the originals, you know, Netflix being driven by originals. But of course, the most exclusive and the most valuable content is sports.
Not to me.
What about Formula One racing?
But it's not the most valuable.
Right.
I'll watch it, but it's not. You know, I'd pay more money to see Star Wars than Formula One racing.
Okay, but you know, in terms of ESPN subscription dollars, anyway,
Which is unfortunate for me.
Which is unfortunate for you, right? But for but you know, in general sports, great franchise, goes for a lot of money, exclusive rights, and all of that. You know, there's a very concentrated group of leagues that essentially own this stuff. What are they going to, I mean, it seems like a natural opportunity for SVOD, or are they just getting too much money from the existing system, and what's going to happen there? I mean, they've made some announcements, but nothing concrete.
I think it's going to be both, right? I think the fees they're getting right now from the broadcaster side they're too great to completely go out of the bundle and go truly OTT. However, and look at the NBA deal with ESPN for out-of-market games. Like there are windows there that are incredibly valuable that aren't being monetized as well as they can right now, and they will certainly take advantage of it. And I wouldn't be shocked if the NFL does the same thing. Although if you look at Thursday Night Football, it's an example of they actually went the other direction, where they tried to monetize themselves and then it intentionally built up that franchise to then license it back to the broadcasters. Right. So the leagues are smart, and they have the most valuable content, mostly because it's the only content that people really still care about watching live, which is where the biggest ad dollars are right now. And so as long as that model continues, you know, that's that first window via broadcasters and via, you know, frankly, right now, pay TV subscriptions are going to stay there. And then they will find smart ways, whether it's mobile rights like the NFL's done with Verizon, or out of market games to sort of build up other windows and monetize well there.
And it's also a bit of a one-shot deal as it relates to sports. I mean, you don't see football games being uploaded to the Pirate Bay.
Right.
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 Yeah, it's no value.
Right.
They're
It's all
fresh.
about life.
They're hot when they're
Yeah,
fresh.
there's no value after it's over.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, Jerry, you and I had a sort of interesting conversation a couple days ago. And one of the things that struck me was you were talking a bit about, how your apps, your watch apps, have started to develop a bit of a life of their own, a bit of their own identity, somewhat separate, from the mothership, if you will. And I mean, is that intentional? Is that something that's valuable? How do you do that? And how far can you go before it's changing the brand too much?
Well, I don't know about we're separated from the mothership. I think what's happened, and it gets back to the Redbox instant conversation slightly that I was having, is that the consumer expectation as they access all this content on these platforms is that it works like their television. It just turns on. I can access whether it's a live stream of KABC here in LA or WABC in New York. It's going to work, right? And we try really hard to make sure it works, but it's a different mindset from a sort of technology, operations, and even product standpoint of making sure that you're going from, what some, sort of a traditional sort of web streaming business. I'll go back 5 or 6 years that, we had at ABC to you're literally running, sort of mini TV networks, 24 hours a day, 365. And we actually do have a call center that we spun up to go and field authentication problems or streaming problems, just to support our consumers, because we, in a way, are direct to consumer now. And there's a really tight feedback loop that didn't really exist with sort of a traditional broadcast network or even a cable channel like ABC Family until we put these apps in the marketplace. And then as all the downloads came in and the millions and billions of hours we've streamed over the years, people want to reach out and say something didn't work, and we want to help them get access to content. So that was the thrust of our conversation is we've had to grow up really, really quickly in the last probably year and a half and learn some tough lessons and say, all right, this is sort of a 5 nines operation, not just a VOD app that we had, back in 2010.
All right. So what about monetization? One thing that we haven't, talked about for the video anytime, anywhere. TV everywhere. The monetization was just supposed to be another split of the ad minutes. A little bit different from it is on broadcast, but essentially, it's all that. Is that going to be what the primary mode of monetization is going to be, or is there really a need to drive monetization further with going subscription and going OTT?
I don't know what you're going to say, but I think one of the first key things that we're all, I think, especially on the broadcast and cable side, trying to solve is the measurement piece.
Right.
Whether that's, sort of Nielsen, C3, C7, or some other ComScore media, something, whatever that sort of industry currency is becoming, how do we make sure that the views across all of the different platforms are getting counted? And then we'll figure out, not that we're not thinking about monetization every single day, because we are, but let's figure out what the currency is. We can sort of rally behind that and then go out and get proper sort of monetization for the viewing that's happening on all these devices.
Why is that taking so long? I mean, haven't we been having this conversation for like 5 years about how to do the measurements? And
I think it's been longer than that.
Yeah,
That's probably true. I don't know.
I'm not complaining. I'm just wondering, like literally historically.
Yes. What are the challenges? I mean,
Well,
what
I'm-
exactly is so hard?
I'm not in the ad business, so I'm uniquely qualified to answer. I think it's because all parties don't really trust each other. I mean, I think that's the big issue. It's not a technology problem. It's just there's just
I think that's
nobody's incentivized to really agree across an industry. At least not yet.
I mean, I might disagree a little bit. I don't know if it's as much of a trust issue as much as even Nielsen classically is a panel-based measurement service. You're moving into a digital medium, which is not panel-based, which is really, tracking every click, and that's not their core expertise. And so now you're in a place where you're merging different technologies and trying to, again, I think, maximize the value of the content. And so it's still really about C3 and C7. That's where the advertising community wants to put their money behind because they see the value there. And so the measurement just isn't matching up now. And then you throw in DAI on the back end and sort of the, too much inventory and not quite the ability we want to monetize that. I think it's been a little challenging. The one piece I would add, though, is I think advertising is one piece of it. I think there still is a lot of value as we come back to the table with MVPDs on supporting kind of the core subscription fee with the services we're doing. And we've seen significant value both on the retrans side, but even on the cable side on these services and how they actually affect the ability to kind of come back in and raise those sub fees. So I think those are really the two primary sources right now. And they're both actually fairly strong, right? So
I would agree. Absolutely.
And I mean, that suggests that, I mean, if if TV Everywhere is an important part in defending the package and defending the bundle and keeping sub fees where they are, does that mean that then it is working, right? I mean, then it's, at least from the programmer's perspective.
I think it's working to an extent. Again, I think that the truth is there's a lot of work that needs to be done, I think, consumers' eyes to really raise adoption, usage, awareness, to make authentication clearer. I think the question really is, so it may be helping on the pay TV side, but if we're losing viewers on the ad sales side because they come to the service, don't authenticate, go somewhere else to find the content, I think that's where the challenge is. And so I think part of, and we've seen this today, like we need to stop thinking about it as purely just a distribution vehicle and start to build real products, which is like people on this panel are actually doing. Is, we are to some extent competing for audience with people who are building truly living, breathing consumer products. And so that's a new thing to be doing as a programmer.
Yeah,
So
go ahead. I should point out, that's one of the things we've been trying to figure out on at Dish is we know that a certain segment of the population is still going to be watching on that big screen, right? And they're still going to be trying to find the value prop mostly in their actual subscription service. So we're always trying to figure out ways to like augment what's actually on the screen, improving the search, improving your ability to, for us to sort of surface whatever it is that they want to watch. Or we have a thing called Game Finder. I'm not a huge sports fan, but my team makes this, and it's an extraordinarily popular service. And basically, it gets to know you, and it tells you when the next game from your favorite teams is going to be coming up, and of all the games coming up in the next hour, which one's the most popular. And this is just basically a layer that's laying on top of your live television service and surfacing it in ways that I think were pioneered by the on-demand people. Going, how do we take a vast bunch of stuff and surface those things that are going to be most relevant to you?
Discovery kind of as a question as well. I mean, I think that's something we talked about in our pre-session quite a bit, is trying to, with this surfeit of different services, your own traditional subscription, how do you find stuff? And what's your view on that? What's going to develop? Is it, in some ways, part of the power of the pay TV provider was they owned the search app, they owned the grid, they owned the access point to all this programming. But now it's in a lot of different places. So will somebody emerge to own that? Will it be the Samsung TV platform app? Will it be probably not, but or will it be something else that's out there? Or will the MVPDs encompass this as well within their own services? I mean, what's going to happen here?
I mean, from our perspective, we're going to do our best to super serve as many folks as we can. Obviously, with our distribution partners, we're going to provide the assets and the resources and the metadata that they need. But at the same time, as much as I'd like to think I am a genius and know everything, we're not going to create within the four walls of Epix the next big revolution in television discovery. So what is it that we do as a company? What is it that we do as an industry to support that? We have XML feeds of our titles. They're kind of publicly available. I think you guys ingest them.
Sure, absolutely.
Bing ingests them inside of Xbox. You can actually talk to your Xbox and say, I'd like to watch Transformers, and it'll tell you it's on Epix. But frankly, we're in the process of building an API to the network. There's discovery services out there. There's discovery tools out there. Why should we limit that playback within our, again, I'm not in the ad sales business, so I'm not really competing for eyeballs. But at the same time, I want to empower folks like Fan Plus to, index my stuff properly, get metadata that, they can have legally. They don't have to beg, borrow, cheat, steal to get it. And then, let our customers who are paying us enjoy the experience that they've decided on. That's my goal. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's actually really smart. I think, you mentioned it's a paradigm shift. As a programmer today, you're not thinking about audience development in the way that a web publisher would, which is when they think about discovery on and off platform and building audiences through these tools. I mean, they built these incredibly robust platforms to do that, and we haven't been set up that way. So if you start to shift your mentality and you're building things from an API perspective, you can start to do that and find audiences where you're not right now.
And I mean, we just
Or what
flat
does
out
find you? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just flat out can't afford. Google makes their announcement last week about yet another TV platform, and I'm just sitting here like, shit, there goes everybody's bonus because I gotta go do that, and no, they're not going to give me any more money. Right? I mean, that's I can ignore some of the CE folks, and we can tap dance around it a little bit, and well, you get a little bit further along, come back and see. It's not happening. It's just not happening. But if I can turn around and say, here's instructions, you guys have a good time. Call me when you serve more than 25,000 movies.
Yeah. So what do you think? I mean, it's a little noticed fact. I mean, I don't think it got much. I don't think it got any publicity at all. But Netflix for years had a public API which lets you tap into and find out what their programming schedule is and their programming grids are. They've just taken that private, and they've just not. It's no longer public.
Did they say why?
No, that's why I'm asking you. You're the experts. Any thoughts? You can even guess.
I can guess.
Go ahead.
I mean, to me, it would be to take away the anticipated disappointment of losing access to something coming out of a window, a negotiated window, so that, I know that I want it. We were talking about the TV series, The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, because I want access to that show and nobody has it. But the movie is on Netflix, but it's entirely possible. Let's say that Netflix has it until April. It's just annoying to know that come April, I won't have it anymore. So that would be my guess. I can't imagine why else you would do it.
Emil, any thoughts there?
I would echo that same sentiment. I mean, I think that their trend over the next couple of years is going to be trimming their catalog and not necessarily growing it. And I don't think they want people to have an easy way to say, well, I was paying X number of dollars for Y number of movies. Why am I paying X plus dollars now for Y minus movies?
But what's funny is we were talking about this beforehand, is that you're exactly right. And yet what's strange
we're
is
done
that But the funny thing is with Netflix, you pay X dollars for X number of movies, and it's this vast bucket of movies, but you're never really clear like how much it is. We just know it has to be vast in order to get you more or less the stuff that you want. Just like Spotify, no telling how big that library is, but it has to be pretty big so that any given thing you search for is likely to have a search result. And the thing we were talking about is one of the challenges with cable companies is that they give you a vast collection of stuff, but the way they present it, and this is why we're now working really hard on recommendations. The way cable companies traditionally presented all of their material was in a grid that people resent having to look at. That is so vast. It goes on for miles. It's this like 4,000 line grid that is impossible to read your way through in the half hour that you want to watch something on. And it makes you just resent that you're paying to get access to that content. And Netflix worked the way around that. And we, by the way, we know that a lot of people don't prefer to look at the grid. They prefer to look at the content that's for them. So that's one of the things we're working on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it was an interesting observation that the group had made that, you sometimes you get a particular network that you don't watch, and be whatever topic. If you're not a sports fan, you have all those ESPN channels. Why am I paying for this?
Yeah.
Right, but and it's a bundle, and you're forced to skip over them. But because you're forced to skip over them, you know that they're there, as opposed to Netflix, where it's a bundle too.
Yeah.
There's an enormous amount of content that you're not watching. That so you don't have kids. It's all the kids stuff. That Netflix is paying for that costs you in your subscription, albeit a much smaller amount. But still, nobody views it that way.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, like nobody resents the fact that there's Clifford. Assuming Clifford is on Netflix, I actually don't know anymore. But I mean, nobody resents that it's there because they just don't watch it.
You're right. And within each of your apps, certainly you don't necessarily present a grid. Actually, you don't present a grid at all. In fact, I mean, 3 of your apps. I mean, you don't have any.
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I don't think you even can.
With all of them, we have just a day's TV schedule of what is on in case you want to jump into live, but it is not the primary method of discovery of content.
Right. What is the primary method of discovery of content?
It's what either is the most recent or the most popular that's being viewed across all the ecosystem. Right?
Okay. Do people navigate by show typically, or they just really go what's presented?
They go with really what's presented, but like I said, by either what has just aired, recency, or popularity is the biggest.
What are you finding with Epic's app
Yeah, I
usage?
mean, I think there's a couple of things that go in there. You know, first of all, when we first launched the business about 5 years ago, it was a tonnage game. I mean, everybody was playing a tonnage game. And I remember having conversations with our initial distribution partners saying things like, you know, this doesn't end well, right? There's no end to this strategy. And, you know, it went from 1,000 movies to 3,000 movies to 5,000.
Sure.
And, you know, we have 3,250 movies. Why? Because the day we launched, that's how many movies we needed to have more than Netflix and HBO Go.
Interesting.
Right. I mean, that was sort of the metric. You know, that's how we put that together. You know, we were very search based for a while, and we had licensed a title database about 80,000 movies. And you know, if somebody came to Epix and we're going to keep harping on the Star Wars thing, guys. You know, and if somebody came to Epix and searched for Star Wars, I had 3 choices. Choice number 1, no, it doesn't exist. Sorry. Choice number 2, which is like the biggest dick move in the planet, is, hey, if you like Luke Skywalker, you're gonna love Captain Kirk, right? This guy, man, whoa, he's gonna, you know. Or number 3 is, I can help you find it, right? And we indexed VOD listings, we indexed pay-per-view listings, we indexed, you know, the
So you
Netflix
do have a
API.
discovery.
Well, but again, you know, that was our position as a newcomer in the space. And you know, we and the fallback was selling the DVD on Amazon. We make a couple of bucks a month doing that. Not you know, nobody's buying a new car, but you know, we're doing that. But you know, that discovery methodology, I mean, that's why I want to focus on making my platform accessible to folks, so that when some, you know, 10-year-old out there who's working away right now and is just going to build the next big discovery thing, I want to have, here's my stuff, here's how you use it, here's how you index, you know, go with God, my friends. You know?
So you're open to having, I mean, you're open to just public indexing of.
Well, we're incredibly open to public indexing. I mean, you know, we're really we used to be. I mean, I knew this for a fact. I don't know if it's still true, but you know, we used to be one of the only TVE services out there that actually let you see the entire catalog before you authenticated. Right? You know, if you go to HBO Go without logging in, like the first thing it says is select cable company. You know, for us, it gives, you know, you when you hit the play button is when it says, all right, so how do you pay your bill?
I wish we had an HBO guy here. I mean, seriously.
We don't even have Time Warner guys here.
Exactly. No, but I mean, you know, but ESPN does the same thing. I mean, you know, I think Fox does it incredibly well. By the way, if you're looking for somebody to emulate on the TVE user experience front, you know, they've got a pretty good degree of likelihood that you get Fox. So even if you don't know your cable company name and password, they give you like 24 or 48 hours to actually play around with it before you have to enter your password.
That's cool.
And they also treat the TVE credentials basically like billing credentials. So instead of 15 magic digits that you might plug in off your Visa card or your fancy new Apple Pay jam, you know, you make your identity within their community and you create your username. You get to pick it yourself, and you get to pick what email address you want to be, what email address you want to use to communicate. And then when you get to the point where you actually have to authenticate, then, you know, those credentials sort of live there in the background. You know, one of the interesting things we were talking about earlier about sort of the usability, I had this fight with a cable operator very recently, right?
Yeah.
We want users to re-authenticate every 7 days.
Right.
Probably know which.
No, I'm going to do it for 60 days. Well, why would you do it for 60 days? Because I really don't care.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you know, okay, so if somebody pays their bill, logs in, then cancels their service, what are they going to get, 30 free days?
Remember,
I'm
everything
over it.
has
I'm
a
over it in a
business
big way.
case. Look, every call that comes in asking for a
Yeah.
password costs
Yeah.
money, like real
Much
money.
more than a month. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's absolutely not worth alienating the consumer, you know, just because you don't trust them. You know, I agree with you. You know, it's very important to have them authenticated, but
I mean, when we launch Epic, we still do this thing where we can share a movie. I can go into any title I'm watching on the service, hit a button, get a link, and invite all you guys in to watch that movie with me, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the virtual equivalent of, hey, come over to my house Friday, and we're going to watch the Formula One race on NBC Sports Network, right? I don't put an extra couple of bucks in my cable bill that month because I had friends over who might not.
Would you
have
do that
NBC
if
Sports
we
Network.
asked you?
Would I do it? Absolutely,
actually
absolutely.
exhibition
Because I don't
race.
do anything bad ever. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, like, and everybody says, "Oh, this is great. This is really clever." Here's where it started to fall apart. Well, I need to know what your customer's name is. Oh no, we're not doing that. Okay, well, I'm going to ask them. Ooh, you know, they don't like us having any PII, any personally identifiable information about their customers. You know, but you know, you want to be in this little chat room. Do you want to be represented as a 64-digit number, or would you like to be, you know, Bobby 310? It's your call. So there's a lot of things that are kind of going on in that space. So, we can talk authentication, we can talk making it easier, but at the end of the day, you're competing on an experience basis, and we got to get these roadblocks out of it.
Xbox had a sharing. Do they still do this? Because I was aware of it, but I didn't play with it. Where they had a movie sharing experience where you'd be represented by a little shadow like on MST3K, and so you could watch a movie together. Did anybody play with this feature? Wow, in concept, it sounds like something people would do, but I didn't do it, and nobody else did it, which is funny.
I think we know why it's gone now.
So I do actually have one question about, you two in particular, as broadcasters. You have your TV everywhere, obviously, and you also have your non-authenticated viewing just on your .com sites and on Hulu as well. Each of your companies has made a slightly different choice. I believe on ABC, it's a week delayed or something like that, right before it's for open viewing. Whereas NBC, it's just next day, it's just out there and all of that. Is there any difference in the revenue essentially that you're getting for the ads under TV versus the ads under open, or is it what's the I don't think there is, and what's the rationale for the difference?
How do I answer this carefully? There are certain choices we have to make, right, given who we're owned by. But I think it's a balance. I think there's value in free because that's going to drive the largest ad sales dollars, and certainly on the broadcast side, right, we need to be focused on that. I think though you'll probably see a shift towards what you're seeing, which is there's a free window and then there's an authenticated window. Okay. Others have done that as well, right? So but for right now, right, I think it's about audience, and the place to build an audience is without having to go through the funnel, at least on the broadcast side.
But what's the advantage for a broadcaster? Since you can do this, and what's the advantage to actually having that authenticated window? I'm not talking specifically about you, but just in general.
It comes back to retrans to some extent, right? So there's conversations around wanting authentication, certainly around certain high value content to live in the pay TV ecosystem. And so, there's two very important revenue streams, and you have to really balance both.
Okay. Yeah, it's 100% right. Going much deeper than that would take a whole other panel, probably lots of lawyers in the room with us. But yeah,
it sounds like a great time.
All right. Well, at that point, since we're running out of questions, I'd like to open the questions up to the audience. Anybody want to ask questions of our esteemed panel? And if you don't mind stating your name as well.
Talk a lot about TV in terms of taking away from TV, essentially presenting it on a tablet. Curious to maybe get to maybe Jason and Alex in terms of other enhancements that you're doing, taking advantage of the interactivity device. So one of my favorite apps is CNN Go to CNN X, and that has both the ability to cover 24 to 48 hours. Go back and
look back,
yeah,
as well as additional content. If I'm not really familiar with story, backstory, I want to dig deeper. Are you guys looking at doing that or?
Absolutely. The first thing I'd call out is, so we have two major mobile applications. We also provide access to most every one of our partners' applications, but we have two of our own. I've talked about Dish Anywhere, which is basically just giving you access to all your stuff, right? But that's for when you've stepped outside, or you're in another room, or you're out at the mall or something. If you're at home, we have an application called Dish Explorer, and it actually is essentially a replacement for the grid and for the remote control and for everything else. You have your iPad app. It lets you know what's on, and it gives you all kinds of metadata and searchable IP data and what have you. So that whole point is to just create this enhancement of what it is that you're viewing on the screen. And so it's really this idea that, hey, you got a big screen chances are you've got a big screen on a wall somewhere that you want to watch stuff on, but we can move a lot of these other experiences over to the iPad device and start taking advantage of data that's also coming in. We've also included the game finder enhancements as well, so that you can find out what sports are coming on. And or for instance, we had a lot of success with with the World Cup and with Olympics, where we're constantly grabbing internet data and farming it up and sort of enhancing your live TV experience.
That's as a second screen device?
That's as, actually we do it both, because we do it on the second screen and we also do it on the first screen, where we create grids that you can just bring up and overlay the whole TV screen and more of that stuff. And it's done well. If you call it a separate app, in my experience, call something an app, you position it as an app, people don't necessarily use it as much. If you position it as, or at least you get people to be aware of something as just an enhancement of TV, just a thing that they can do, then it gets much better take-up.
Sir in the back.
It's kind of a leading question. So you guys are doing TV everywhere, and the apps on your content and trying to do details. Like, let's say you've got a Roku, you've got a TiVo, you've got an Xbox, all these different devices you have to serve. Do you guys use a single technology to kind of store the content and serve it out? Or are you finding it's really a challenge to keep up with the various platforms because you have to look at different SDKs and software developer kits and fill the needs of the actual devices? Or how do you kind of centralize it so you can have one place to serve the content and create experiences that live on the platforms?
I don't have anything on this.
Yeah,
Anybody want to answer?
I think, I mean, for us, we try to gravitate from a technology and distribution standpoint around the video assets, around as many standards as we possibly can. We're big proponents of HLS currently, adaptive bit rates. So we'll have basically one MES file that will encode into various different bit rates, all at HLS, and we then distribute via HLS. And if MPEG-Dash becomes a sort of adopted standard, we'll go that way. But we've, where we can, tried to standardize as much as possible, especially on the sort of encode and storage side and streaming side, delivery, as much as possible around whatever industry standards there are. It's always a challenge, but that's how we've made it very cost effective, using lots of cloud infrastructure to go and manage all that stuff. But
That's only one piece of it, right? You're serving the content. But I'm talking about actually creating the experience. So the experience on a Roku device,
Yep.
Yep.
same thing as an iPhone or an Android. Like, how do you guys kind of keep control of the experience?
yeah, I mean, well, that piece, yeah, it's difficult. I mean, Apple TV has way different rules than Roku on an over the top space, and way different.
PlayStation 3 has no rules.
Right. Different development, specifications you have to adhere to. We work hand in glove with most of those guys to try to make sure that our properties and our brands are well represented the way we want them to be on those devices. And in some cases, yes, that is unique sort of development efforts for those platforms. But we sort of weigh. You look at where the market industry is moving from a consumption standpoint. We're you see this rush to OTT, as we talked about on this panel. So we feel like we really want to own those experiences on those popular devices. Others, you look at some Android spaces where there's tons of different sizes and form factors and tablets and phones and phablets and everything in between. We may not make as many customizations there from a resource and cost standpoint. It just doesn't make as much sense. So it's a tough thing that we always have to balance.
Sir on the right.
Yeah, given all the murky legal things around some companies have said forward with it. And I'm not sure what the state of the art is now with the law on that, but how does that affect your business? And do you see any role for cloud TV on the phone or like that?
That's for you, probably.
I mean, right now we aren't. We actually benefit from the person actually having a DVR. We give them, access through the internet to what's actually on their DVR, and so it's literally stored in your living room. So we don't really have to worry about it. But we watched that really closely, the Aereo decision, I don't think that we were dissatisfied with the way that it came down, but I don't really have anything on the future of cloud DVR. It's an interesting thought. I don't know.
From our perspective as a business, it's no factor. From my perspective as a consumer, I'm tired of buying storage.
Yeah.
I think
something we take a look at all the time, and it's interesting, sort of keep your finger on. There are some really unique, both sort of technology solutions as well as sort of product and monetization avenues that cloud DVR opens up. I think you framed it perfectly. There's a lot of murkiness there, and it's for us, on the sort of, again, on the distribution or programmer side, is now the time to sort of make a bet there, or now it's to be determined, I think.
The other question is, we keep talking about Spotify, which is funny because it's audio and not video, but it's like, why, if we can create a compelling enough service where you have access to all of your on-demand content, right? And you have look back, so you can see what's been on in the last couple of weeks, and get access to that. And you have access to various libraries through your service. Then there's no particular, the value prop of an individualized locker lessens. So I would love to know. I mean, I don't have any data on it. I'd love to get people into a focus group and say, does this matter to you? Does it matter to you if you have stuff that
he doesn't want to buy any more storage. It matters to him.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, in a way, I mean, it's kind of like what TV Everywhere was supposed to be in general, right? I mean, to eliminate the need of these things, it's just increase the value of your TV subscription, so you have it all there. You don't have to store it yourself. It's just there.
It's always there.
Yeah, but you need certain rights for that, obviously, in your program negotiations. One more question, sir, right there.
So if Toyota bought the rights to Winter Olympics and then said that in order to watch it, you have to buy a Toyota car, that'd be a big uproar. People would say it's unfair barrier to consumption.
Yeah.
But ABC buy the rights and they say, well, to watch it, you must now have a cable subscription, which is $800 to $1,200 proposition. So how do you defend putting a $1,000 barrier onto?
That's not quite true.
I mean, is there a constitutional right to the Olympics? I understand.
But there's a reasonable expectation that you shouldn't have to commit to such a large price to watch something that, is a national review.
Yeah.
World Cup soccer is the same in ESPN.
I was just being theoretical. I don't know. It's a good question.
I guess the question would be, at some point you have to put an ROI against investment you're making in broadcasting the Olympics, the thousands of people that you're putting at the event. The ability that you can even watch on your television set is because of billions of dollars in investment. And so we're not a public utility. It's hard to give that stuff away for free.
No one said you've got to put a $50 online subscription to people who don't have cable watch it and cover the costs of the online distribution. And you already had an online distribution as part of the TV package associated.
But the Olympic rights to begin with cost billions of dollars.
Yeah, I think it's just.
Ferrari would sell a lot more cars if they were a lot cheaper.
Well,
Saying.
so how does one? It's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to it. First of all, candidly, I don't know the answer to this. This is something that I really would want to study. But how does one watch the Olympics if you didn't have access to NBC? You watch it through the news, because remember, the news can carry Olympics.
Well,
Right.
You can put an antenna up.
I was going to say, yeah, there are.
What do you?
ways.
So,
it's antenna.
NBC locals
public
were carrying
airwaves.
the Olympics
Sure.
live
Sure.
through OTA. So
Yeah.
there's always that way around.
Well,
And some
broadcast
things-
was.
But fundamentally,
point, some things are on cable.
we've got this socioeconomic construct of the United States called a free market economy, and if you have a supply of things, you can meter that supply out to a potential customer base, and you can charge a fee, and that money can be exchanged for goods and services. So, at some level, it comes down to the basic economics of what's it worth. Right? For me, there's things that I would pay a lot more money for. I'd pay a lot more money for my Formula One coverage. Right? It's just what I want to do. I mean, I'm happy I don't have to, but I would. Right?
I should say
I'd
the
love
same-
to pay less on my cable bill because I don't watch ESPN. I mean,
The
it's
same
just
is
who I
true
am
for
as a
World
person.
Cup, by the way. I mean, this is definitely the case with a lot of events of that nature.
Well, in other countries too. I mean, in the UK, you pay your TV license fee for broadcasting.
But that's his question is definitely worth studying, because you have some of these extremely important to people events like World Cup and the Olympics and so forth, where much of the experience is controlled by a few parties, and that's the status that we have right now. But it's an interesting question.
I think it's basic capitalism. Right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day. today.
Well, I mean, the IOC could choose to make it non-exclusive and choose to make it non-exclusive rights.
Sure, and then they would
They
have
want
to
that money.
spend billions of
Well, no,
dollars
they could choose to do
investment
that if they
in.
wish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
They
believe in some
could go
countries they
direct to
do.
consumers with some sort of over-the-top service.
That you could.
Wow.
All access.
No, and maybe it'll come to that. Maybe it'll go in that direction, but
It
you know,
may.
probably not
They
next
may
year.
go direct to consumer. All right. Well, I think that is the end of our time. So I want to thank our esteemed panel for their wisdom and insight in guiding us through this morass. Thank you very much.